So I thought I would just make a video about possible updates or changes that I would like to see for any upcoming Pokemon Snap sequels or similar type of photography Pokemon game that will probably never exist again except for in my fantasy world. And while Pokemon Snap is a great game, it does have some really huge downsides. The biggest being there are only 7 tracks in the game, and there are only 63 of the available 151 Pokemon actually available in the game. And this is completely due to storage. Nintendo wanted to make sure that there was enough storage on the cartridge so that you could save pictures and take them to a Blockbuster and print them out, which was really cool, but in hindsight, the game doesn't live up as much anymore because when you replay it, you can actually play through this entire game in an hour, start to finish. Photographing every single Pokemon can be done in an hour, which is kind of preposterous even for a 64 game. So of course the first thing I want to address as something that can make a Snap sequel better is put every single Pokemon in the game. If this was going to release on Switch, you definitely have the storage for that many 3D models. You definitely have storage for lots and lots of tracks and levels. So just give me more tracks, give me more Pokemon. That way they can interact differently with the environment, which is one of the strengths of Pokemon Snap, is that it's really fun to see all of these Pokemon actually just running around in an environment, interacting with each other, interacting with things you do, and the environment. So just more of that, please. And you can do so much with these dynamic interactions. One of my favorite parts of this game is just having Pokemon kind of interact with each other. There's a part of the volcano level where you can make a Magmar and a Charmander fight over an apple, and the Magmar spits fire onto the Charmander, causing it to evolve into a Charmeleon. And there's so much more room for that now with more generations of Pokemon introduced. So say you can Pester Ball a Piloswine and cause it to use Ancient Power on either you or another Pokemon, and that can cause it to evolve into a Mamoswine. If you have levels with Pokemon like Gloom or Kirlia that have split evolution lines, you can interact with them in different ways, and depending on how you interact with them or what kind of environment they're in, they can evolve into different things, which could add a whole new replay level to this game. Because as it stands, there isn't really any replay value in this game. Once you've photographed all the Pokemon and filled out as much of the photo album as you can, really the only reason to go back through is to try to get these special events like Surfing Pikachu and Balloon Pikachu, or just try to get the highest points possible for each Pokemon. But even then, you're gonna get bored with the game really fast after you've finished it. And again, you can finish it in an hour, so you're not gonna get that much playtime out of it. And to add more depth to possible interactions between Pokemon and the environment and items, this game definitely needs some more items. Right now, the game basically has 3 items that have 3 effects across all Pokemon. The Pester Ball makes them angry, the Apple typically makes them happy or lures them closer to you, and then music just makes them dance or move around a little bit. So definitely more items for a current console game. So if this was going to come out on the Switch, you could fit so many more items. You could even make it for you can get special items and bring into levels with you. So if you know that a level has Gloom or Cottony in it, then you can bring a Sunstone with you and attempt to throw it close enough to one of them to make them evolve. Same thing can go for any kind of evolution stone or even other evolution items. So if you know that there's a Sneasel in a level, maybe you want to throw a Razor Claw close to it and then hit it with a Pester Ball so that it'll pick up the Razor Claw and attack you, which will cause it to evolve into a Weavile. Just something along those lines. Or even items that might have different effects that allow you to take different photos with certain Pokemon. So say if you take a Flame Orb into a level with you and you throw it to a Fire Pokemon, and that's going to make it do something that it would only do if it's holding that item. Or say that Swirlix or Slurpuff will only appear in a level if you have a Whipped Dream with you. There's just so much that can be done across all types of battle items, berries, incense. They can all have different effects to add added depth to every single level, meaning that if you go into the level with different items, it's going to play different ways every time. And for the item system, you could implement some kind of point system, a lot like battle points are used in the mainline games. So depending on how high your pictures score, you could be able to trade in those points for certain items to replay levels with. And in addition to items, I would like to see more power-ups. The only one you really get in this game is the one that revs up your card and makes it move faster if you want it to. That way you can get through levels quicker. But another feature I would like to see is braking. A lot of times I would feel like I was forced to go forward when I actually wanted to stop and take more pictures or do other things in the level. And this did add a little bit of challenge to it, but one of my favorite parts of this game is in the volcano level when you get to the Moltres egg, it actually stops your card in place so that you have a minute to kind of interact with all of the Charmanders that are off to the side. And in doing so, you can actually call more and more Charmanders over, and it's really fun. So you could possibly put cart movement speed on a continuum. That way, certain Pokemon, maybe you have to go really slow and kind of sneak up on them, like in Breath of the Wild when you're trying to sneak up on a wild animal. You could add that feature to this game, or braking in total would be great for me, just so that I can stop and actually take in all of the environments and the Pokemon around me. And the same goes for camera movement speed. You can use your D-pad to quickly swap from one direction to the other, but as far as your actual camera movement speed, there's no way to adjust it. Sometimes I just want to move my cursor across the screen as fast as possible, that way I can take more pictures or get a Pokemon at a certain angle, but I'm not really able to because it's at a set speed. And as far as the camera goes, you could also add different filters. You could add different kind of camera tricks to where you could turn it sideways or even upside down. You could add different kinds of zooms, which could play back into that point system, which could let you get different filters or even different borders for your photos. That way you can add more interesting things to them. And again, this would just add more depth to the game. That way you could actually replay it over and over and put some more time into it and enjoy it a lot more. You could even do certain kinds of missions as a different kind of play mode where you go into a level and you have to take so many pictures of a certain Pokemon, or there's a certain picture that you need to get for the mission. Say, you need to take a picture of a Dratini in rain. So you could even have dynamic weather effects where sometimes when you go into a level it might be snowing and other times there's nothing going on, and depending on what the weather is, you have different Pokemon showing up and you have Pokemon acting differently depending on what the weather is. So certain Pokemon that have rain type abilities like Drizzle or Swift Swim might behave differently if it's raining in the level while you're on the mission. You could even have Pokemon spawn rates differ, much like they do in the main games, where when you go into a level, you might only have a 1% chance of seeing a Larvitar. But, you might want to replay the level over and over, try different tricks, use different items to try to increase that spawn rate. Roaming Pokemon could even be a thing where if you're going down a certain track at a certain time, you may not see that Pokemon, but because it's roaming on your next playthrough, it might run across your track really quick and you may have to snap a really quick photo of it. This would be a really fun mechanic for things like Entei, Suicune, and Raikou, which would also be a fun throwback to the mainline series of games. Having alternate modes would also let you encounter different types of Pokemon depending on what kinds of quests you're on, maybe. So say there's an exclusive level that's an Alolan Island where it's the only place you're going to be able to photograph the Alolan forms. Or say you get a Rainbow Cloud type level, say it's Distortion World. You go into the Distortion World and maybe this is the only place that you can get a picture of alternate forms of Giratina. There's just so much Pokemon lore that you could pull from and pepper into this game to make it interesting. And at this point in the series, you have so many Pokemon that are dynamic in themselves. Like you could put a Rotom in different situations in order to find all of those different forms. Or you could even, say, throw a Pester Ball over and over at a Gyarados until it Mega Evolves, and each Mega Evolution has its own little quirk that you have to figure out for yourself within the game. I don't particularly want the Pokemon Snap series to go in the direction of an open world, though. I feel that it has its own certain charm because it is a rail shooter. However, I think that the rail shooter could take place within an ever-changing open world. So the track that you're on is going to stay the same, but everything else around you is going to be constantly changing. It's going to be dependent upon different timed events or how Pokemon move, and just how all of these parts are programmed into this really complex system, so that every time you go to a level, it's not going to be the same as the last time you went. It would be like if in Breath of the Wild or an Elder Scrolls game, you're going down the same path over and over again, but because all of the NPCs in the game, because all of these different events with creatures and weather effects are going on, it's going to be different each time you replay it. A photo taking mechanic showed up in the Sun and Moon games, and they tried to kind of integrate it into an open world where At some point you could just stop and look into the air and there might be a dragon out there, or you could just stop and look into a random friggin' hole in the wall and there would be something there to take a picture of. And I feel like this really just didn't work out. It didn't seem really unique within the game. It wasn't fun to do. And so I hope that that wasn't Nintendo or Game Freak trying to test the waters to see if a photo taking mode really stuck with the audience still. But there are a lot of modern gameplay mechanics that you could put into this game that would really let it benefit. When Pokemon Snap was re-released onto the WiiWare, you could actually upload your photos to an image board with the Wii, a lot like the same way you could take your cartridge to a Blockbuster and print out photos. And this mechanic was kind of carried over into games like Wind Waker HD, except that instead of posting your photos outside the game, you could actually send them to other players within the game. In Wind Waker HD, as you were selling around, you could find these little bottles with images in them, and you can open up images and see what other people had just sent out into the world to be found. Same kind of thing happened with Gravity Rush 2, which came out last year, where you could send photos to other players that were hints on where to find certain items in the game or how to unlock certain things. And that would work great for Pokemon Snap, where you could send hints or just little funny pictures that can be found in these worlds. So if you're going along a track and you see an item on the side where you could pick it up and actually see what someone else had posted. A lot of games really like to incorporate classic RPG elements into these single player games now too, and that's completely possible with Pokemon Snap. If you wanted to add skill trees so that as you gain experience from taking more and more photographs of Pokemon in different ways and finding new Pokemon, you could use that experience to work your way up a skill tree where certain aspects of photo taking get better, where perhaps your zoom can increase, or just the quality of photos you take. Maybe you could have separate links to where your lures or whatever items you have last longer or have a greater effect. I keep using the word depth in this video. I just want more features that add more depth, that make the game more interesting to play, that can bring me back over and over again, and just keep me engaged in finding new ways to interact with Pokemon and interact with the environments of the game. Another big trend in gaming right now is timed exclusive events, and I think that would actually work really well in this game as well. It's really nice to have these timed events because it brings players back to games even if they put them down for a little while. Pokemon Go does this all the time, and even though sometimes I hate it, it brings me back every time to where they'll say, oh, for this weekend only, you know, certain Pokemon are going to have increased spawn rates, or they'll have increased shiny rates. And you could definitely do that for this game. Gen 4 had migrations where it would say, oh, you know, every other Thursday there's going to be a lot more Wimpod in this area, or something along those lines. And you could do that in this game too, so that people kind of plan ahead to know when they're going to play this game and what they're going to be looking for. Splatoon does this with their Splatfest, where they say, for a limited time only, you know, you're going to be able to gain more points doing these certain things, doing these certain missions within the game. And Pokemon could also benefit from something like that, where it's, oh hey, a Dialga's gonna appear this weekend, so play this level at this certain time this weekend and you'll get a chance to take a picture of a Dialga. Or here's a special Steel type event, so you'll get more points for this limited amount of time for taking pictures of all Steel types. Or hey, if you're playing this game on Halloween, there'll be increased spawns for Ghost types, or you'll get double points if you take a picture of different sized Pumpkaboos. And of course, since this imaginary game would be on the Nintendo Switch, utilize that touchscreen. Make it so that if you have it in handheld mode, you can do certain little fun quirks using the touchscreen that maybe lets you use different items in different ways, or lets you get a further reach on how you're tossing things. This could even be a way to integrate something like Pokemon and Me, where if you have certain partner Pokemon or something within the game, you can interact with them using the touchscreen. And on the subject of partner Pokemon, that could add another level to the game, where if you have certain Pokemon with you as you're on the rail shooter, they could supply different effects. So maybe if you had a Zigzagoon with you, it could use its pickup ability to pick up some random items within the level. That way at the end, you can see what items your Pokemon picked up for you. Or if you have a Combee with you that can create honey, honey might be able to attract certain Pokemon like a Heracross or a Munchlax that isn't going to appear otherwise. There's just so much missed opportunity, I feel, with this franchise, and I just really wanted to continue past this game. I know that Nintendo and HAL Laboratories collaborated for this, and I don't know what that relationship between those two is like anymore. But just leave me down in the comments changes that you would like to see made to Pokemon Snap to make it better, what you would want to see in a sequel. And just thanks so much for watching, guys, and until next time, bye.